This is the final warning for every owner of American iron. Today, we are unsealing the archive to reveal the only American diesel engine worth buying before they ban it, and the 4 you must avoid at all costs. The suits in DC have signed the 2027 mandate that will effectively kill the simple mechanical diesel forever. They are forcing us into a future of software-locked engines and limp mode nightmares you cannot fix in your own driveway. But there is one sanctuary left, a one-wire masterpiece forged from bridge-grade steel that the government is desperate to regulate out of existence. It is the only machine that provides true mechanical sovereignty in 2026. However, if you pick the wrong legend, you are not buying a truck. You are buying $30,000 in financial execution. Why is the most immortal engine in history suddenly a target for deletion? Do you own the last sanctuary, or are you driving one of the 4 money pits designed to bankrupt you? Section 202A of the Clean Air Act is the loaded chamber behind every emissions mandate. It commands the EPA to set standards for any pollutant that may endanger public health or welfare, and it does not blink at the cost. The law is explicit. Standards must be technology forcing. That means if the EPA can imagine a cleaner engine, every manufacturer must make it real, no matter how costly or complex. Section 202K goes further, demanding that these engines prove themselves not just on paper, but in the crucible of real-world test cycles. The Federal Test Procedure, FTP for city driving, the Highway Fuel Economy Test, HFET for highway, the US 06 test for aggressive acceleration, the SC03 test for air conditioning, even cold starts in winter. No loopholes, no exceptions. Every new light-duty and medium-duty truck sold after model year 2027 must pass these cycles under the watchful eye of electronic monitors. Section 206 is the gatekeeper. It prohibits the sale or registration of any new vehicle that fails to certify under these standards. The process is absolute. Before a single truck leaves the factory, it must survive the EPA certification gauntlet. Every sensor, every emissions control, every onboard diagnostic routine must function flawlessly. If a manufacturer tries to slip a mechanical-only engine past the line, Section 206 slams the door. Certification is denied. The law does not recognize nostalgia for cast-iron simplicity or the right to fix your own truck in the driveway. It recognizes only compliance, measured in grams per mile, verified by electronics. No manufacturer can claim ignorance. The statutory language is carved in stone. No person shall manufacture or sell any new motor vehicle unless such vehicle conforms to the regulations prescribed under this section. If a single sensor fails or a mechanical engine cannot report its own emissions in real time, the penalties are swift, fines up to $50,107 per violation, forced recalls, and orders to cease production. This is not a theoretical threat. It is the operating system of the 2027 multi-pollutant standard. The law does not care if your engine is a one-wire fortress or a digital cage. It cares only for numbers, data, and test results, all streamed live from the engine's electronic nervous system. Mechanical diesels, those with no engine control module and no OBD2 and no digital leash, are locked out by statute, not sentiment. The forbidden sanctuary is forbidden by law. Certification is not a paperwork drill. It is a mechanical lockout. The 2027 multi-pollutant standard demands more than a promise of clean running. It demands a living, breathing stream of digital proof. Every new diesel must survive 120,000 miles of certified durability, tracked by a nervous system of sensors and an onboard diagnostic computer that logs every fault, every drift, every hiccup. There is no place in this regime for a mechanical governor or a fuel rack you can set with a wrench. The law requires data, constant, granular, tamper-proof. If an engine cannot report its own emissions in real time, it is invisible to the certification process. A sensor-light engine, the kind that built the American diesel legend, is now a dead end at the certification gate. EPA's test cycles, FTP, US-06, SC-03 cold start are designed for engines that can talk back, engines with an ECM that records every pulse and every gram of NOx. Mechanical diesels have no such voice. They cannot log faults, cannot self-diagnose, cannot prove to the authorities that their emissions controls are working at mile 1 or mile 120,001. The law does not care about legendary durability or the folklore of a million-mile handshake. It cares about real-time compliance, streamed and stored for audit. The result is a forced extinction. No manufacturer can certify a new mechanical diesel for on-road use after 2027, not because the engines wear out, but because they are mute in a world that demands electronic confession. The marketplace begins to dry up, not from lack of demand, but from legal drought. The forbidden sanctuary of cast iron and compression is sealed off by statute, and the clock is ticking for anyone hoping to claim a seat inside before the gates close for good. Ford's 6.4-liter Power Stroke earned its nickname the hard way, one catastrophic failure at a time. Fleet operators call it the king of scrap, not as a joke, but as an obituary. The chain of destruction starts with the cylinder heads. Thin castings and poor clamping pressure mean cracks are not a question of if, but when. EGR coolers rupture, flooding combustion chambers with coolant until hydrolock bends rods and shatters pistons. Every component is a weak link. The compound turbo system, designed for power, becomes a ticking time bomb. When one turbo fails, the repair bill balloons. You are not just replacing a single unit, you are buying 2 turbos, new piping, and a labor bill that rivals the price of a used truck. Radiators with plastic end tanks split, cross-contaminating coolant and diesel soot, setting off a domino effect that leads straight to the scrapyard. Average repair tickets climb past $10,000 before the odometer even sees 150,000 miles. Head gaskets blow, studs stretch, and before long, you are staring down a $20,000 estimate for a full rebuild. That is why so many 6.4-liter engines vanish from the road, stripped for parts, their vehicle identification numbers erased from auction blocks. The king of scrap is not a legend. It is a warning carved into every failed invoice and every parted-out Super Duty. This is what happens when complexity outruns common sense and the repair bill outruns the value of the truck. A single CP4 high-pressure fuel pump can turn a $70,000 truck into a financial landmine overnight. The pump's steel cam rollers, spinning at 2,000 revolutions per minute, ride against a hardened camshaft. One surface outlasts the other, and microscopic metal shavings begin their journey. In less than a minute, those fragments shoot through the fuel rails into every injector and back to the tank, creating a closed loop of contamination. The result is not just a failed pump, it is a system-wide contamination event. Injectors seize, rails score, and the high-pressure lines fill with metallic grit. Ford and General Motors both issued recall memos, but only after private owners were handed invoices north of $12,000, sometimes double that if the tank, lines, and all 8 injectors had to be replaced. One owner's bill was $18,400 for a 2021 Power Stroke, with the truck sidelined for weeks as every component was replaced in a mandatory bundle. The CP4's design demands surgical cleanliness, but the real world delivers grit, water, and biofuel blends. When the pump detonates, there is no filter fine enough to save the rest. This is not a rare event. Class action lawsuits, fleet downtime, and a growing blacklist among independent mechanics all trace back to a single precision-built part that can destroy an entire drivetrain in seconds. In the age of digital cages, one pump failure writes off a truck long before the engine itself ever wears out. The $1.6 billion settlement is not a footnote. It is the smoking gun. When Cummins signed that check in March 2024, it became the largest Clean Air Act penalty in history, and a confession written in 9 digits. The boardroom calculus is simple. When the cost of engineering bulletproof reliability outweighs the risk of regulatory wrath, accountants win. Every dollar saved on emissions workarounds, Every shortcut in software is a line item weighed against the threat of a recall or a class action lawsuit. The result? Engines that gamble on compliance, not longevity. Defeat devices are installed, emissions controls are programmed to cheat, and the repair bill lands in the owner's lap. The $1.6 billion payout did not buy cleaner air. It bought a corporate reset, a lesson that failure is cheaper than building engines to last 1 million miles. Engineering budgets shrink, warranty reserves swell, and the mechanical sanctuary is sacrificed on the altar of quarterly profit. The industrial archivist calls it for what it is: reliability traded for a settlement, mechanical independence sold out for a balance sheet that survives the next shareholder call. The only escape from this cycle is a machine built before the accountants took the wheel. Numbers don't lie. The 12-valve Cummins was not built for compliance, but for conquest. Start with the compression ratio, 18.5 to 1, a figure that would make a modern emissions engineer sweat bullets. This is not marketing bravado, it is the physics of survival. The cylinder walls are cast so thick you can measure them in fractions of an inch that would bankrupt a modern accountant. Every combustion event is a controlled detonation, iron against iron, with pressures that would buckle the aluminum heads of a lesser engine. The head itself is a monument to over-engineering. Nearly half a ton of cast iron, close to 1,000 pounds when fully dressed, lifted from the block only with a crane or the kind of resolve found in a heavy equipment shop. No aluminum, no plastic, no shortcuts, just mass, density, and the cold logic of metallurgy. The bore stretches to 102 millimeters, the stroke to 120 millimeters, each piston rising and falling like a hydraulic ram. These are not numbers chosen for fuel economy or emissions credits. They are chosen for the ability to crush fuel into vapor, to light off a charge at 18,000 pounds per square inch without a single wire in the circuit. There is no engine control module here, no digital leash, no limp mode algorithm waiting to betray you at the worst possible moment. The P7100 pump sits on the side of the block like a siege weapon, metering fuel with the certainty of a Swiss watch and the brutality of a hydraulic press. The only sensor in the system is your right foot. Every ounce of power is forged in iron, governed by springs and steel, not by code or compliance logic. In a world racing toward electronic confession, the 12-valve stands as the last mechanical stronghold, the one-wire fortress, immune to the audit, untouched by the accountant's pen. The numbers are not just specs, they are a survival protocol, written in iron and pressure for those who refuse to be locked out by statute. Turn the key. The 12-valve wakes with a single pulse, no pre-flight check, no sensor handshake, no digital negotiation. One wire feeds the alternator. The rest is iron, oil, and pressure. There is no ECM, no OBD port, no limp mode lurking in the shadows. The only electronics on a running 12-valve are the charging circuit and the starter relay, and once the engine is lit, even those can be pulled. This is not nostalgia, this is operational proof. The fuel shutoff is a lever you can grab with your hand. The throttle is cable, not code. The P7100 pump sits bolted to the block, its governor springs tuned with a simple wrench. If you want more fuel, you turn a screw. If you want less, you back it off. Every adjustment is mechanical, no laptop required, no login credentials, no software update to brick the system. The wiring harness is a rumor, not a reality. Owners joke about running the whole truck on a single wire, and they are not far off. In a blackout, in a storm, in a world where the grid is silent, the 12-valve will run as long as there is diesel in the tank and a battery to spin the starter. Once running, you could cut the battery cable and the engine won't even flinch. This is what survivability looks like. No digital cage, no compliance algorithm, just compression and combustion under your command. Contrast this with the digital cages rolling off the line today. Modern diesels cannot even idle without a handshake from the ECM and a full sweep of the emission sensors. One sensor drifts, one wire corrodes, and the truck locks itself down, power cut, speed limited, a rolling liability until a dealer resets the code. The 12-valve knows nothing of this. Its only governor is a spring and a rack. Its only limit is how much pressure you dare to unleash. In the world of the 2027 multi-pollutant standard, this is a forbidden sanctuary. The handshake is not digital, it is mechanical. A lever, a spring, a bolt. The owner's grip is the only authentication required. No other American diesel offers this level of independence. The one-wire fortress is not a myth. It is an operational fact, proven every time someone fires up a 12-valve and drives straight past the digital checkpoint, untouched by the accountant's pen, unbroken by the regulator's code. The 3-liter baby diesels promise modern efficiency, but they deliver a spiderweb of electronic dependencies that can bring an entire fleet to a standstill. Every critical system, fuel, air, exhaust, and aftertreatment is monitored by a matrix of sensors, each one feeding data to an encrypted engine control module. When a single NOx sensor or turbo actuator glitches, the engine throws a code that only a dealer-grade scan tool can decipher. Independent mechanics are locked out by software licensing fees that run $1,500 a year just to read the fault tree. Owners face backorder delays for parts as basic as a pressure sensor, sometimes weeks out, with trucks parked and contracts lost. A failed sensor is not a $50 fix. It is a $4,000 downtime bill, plus the cost of specialized test equipment that cannot be shared or resold. The promise of light-duty diesel turns into a diagnostic trap, where the cost of staying on the road is measured in lost time, software subscriptions, and the slow bleed of parts that never arrive. DEF dosing modules do not fail quietly. When the system detects a fault, an overzealous sensor, a crystallized injector, or a glitch in the dosing pump, the engine enters a ritual of self-destruction called Regin lock. The truck cuts power, slashes speed, and then, with no warning, drops into limp mode. For a fleet operator, this is not just a nuisance, it is an execution. One truck sidelined on a delivery route racks up $30,000 in losses before repairs even begin. $8,000 for a new DEF module, $2,500 for sensors, $1,200 for labor, and the rest in lost contracts and driver downtime. There is no override. The system demands proof of compliance before it will release the engine. One failure triggers a cascade. Trucks are parked, deadlines missed, revenue erased by a single diagnostic code. The DEF limp mode is not a warning. It is a financial landmine buried in every emissions-era diesel, waiting for the unlucky to step on it. Survival is not a matter of luck, it is a matter of protocol. The window is closing, and the last true mechanical diesels are already vanishing from the classifieds. Here is the protocol for those who refuse to be locked out by statute. Target Dodge Ram 2500 or 3500. Model years 1994 through 1998. Point 5 carry the P7100 pump, the one-wire fortress, and 0 digital leash. Verify the block casting. Look for casting codes 3937197, 3943610, or 3929036. These codes separate a survivor from a parts donor. 5 checks before you buy. Cold start. Compression above 350 pounds per square inch, no blow-by at idle, 0 rust at the control arms, no cracks in the exhaust manifold, a timing cover with the dowel pin secured. Bring a 19mm socket, a compression tester, a mirror on a stick, and a magnet. Negotiate hard. Clean, unmodified survivors are worth every dollar. The Forbidden Sanctuary is not for the timid. Secure your seat before the gates close. Right now, the 2027 EPA mandate draws a corporate red line across every American driveway. The 12-valve, 18.5:1 compression ratio, P7100 sole, 1,000-pound cast iron head remains the last mechanical sanctuary. Everything else is a digital cage or a financial landmine. When the ban drops, only the one-wire fortress survives. This is mechanical freedom's last stand. Guard it or surrender to the accountants. What would you defend? Drop your answer below.